Let's do that. Awesome. We're recording. Have you got the little recording button on your top screen?
I have.
Magic. I'll edit this bit out. This bit's just us chatting shit.
Yeah, fair.
Cool. So, grand. Episode 1. I feel like we say episode like this is going to be a series. But yeah, so we've had a lot of, myself and Charlie, 2 Charlies, we've had a lot of people asking about kind of doing Q&As, questions around training, nutrition and what have you. So I figured we could get started and do that. And, you know, now sort of more than ever, people are looking to get a bit of good information in their world. As we're on the brink of lockdown 2.0, I feel like now is a good time to get some information out to help people kind of stay on track within lockdown. So I think more than anything, nutrition is probably more important currently than training, because training is going to be a little bit lax. Obviously, we put out some question stickers on Instagram the other day to get some bits in. I've had a couple of really good ones. I think you said you had a couple of good ones as well.
Yep.
So let's get started with one of yours, I guess.
Dive in. Yes. So first one I was asked whether white bread is bad for us.
Classic.
And I mean, any nutrition question, which we could probably preface all of this, is the answer is it depends more often than it is not. And the same with training as well. With this one, the answer is no, with a few caveats. So it is processed. It is stripped of the fibre that like brown bread would have, a wholemeal bread. So for some people, if you're going to eat a lot of it, and if it's going to be one of your main meals frequently, white bread's probably not the best choice. You'd rather go for a higher fibre source. But if you're eating a fruit and veg and some fibre from other sources, white bread's fine. On the flip side of it, if you are going to train, which most people listening to this are, having carbohydrate before training is probably beneficial. Having fibre as part of that carbohydrate isn't, because it takes longer to digest. It's going to sit in your stomach a little bit. And that's not really what you want. You don't want to be chucking food back up mid-session. So white bread before a session, white bread before a session is actually a really good option because it's quite high carbohydrate, pretty easily digested for most people, and it's low in fibre. So it's good or bad. It depends. It sort of depends on the context, but I use that a lot with clients, like white bread, honey, jam, that sort of thing before a training session. Absolutely ideal.
Jam sandwich is a classic.
Absolutely, yeah.
Love a jam sandwich before a session.
Yeah.
That's right, jam sandwich and a coffee.
Mm.
Awesome. Cool. So yeah, that one, I mean, that's a question I get asked quite a lot as well. And it's, I think there's going to be a lot of, throughout these kind of Q&As that we're going to do, I think the answers, it depends.
We'll just go,
pop up quite a lot.
It depends.
And it sounds like you're being really flaky, but it's
it does,
the only way to answer a question accurately is to say, well, it
depends on these things. Yeah,
there's a lot of that. So yeah, awesome. Right, I feel like there's going to be another it depends question. So Craig, he's asked, can you get stronger whilst on a calorie deficit?
Yeah. Funny enough, Craig, it depends.
Who knew?
I mean, is there anything that you want to touch on from a strength side, like in terms of programming, anything like that you think?
So for me, this is and it is, again, it's a massive it depends. So I think the broad stroke answer is yes, it's possible. And obviously it depends on why you're kind of going into that. Typically, if you're on a calorie deficit, you're trying to lose weight. But losing weight and then building muscle, or losing weight and gaining strength, I think are 2 different things. So getting stronger whilst on a calorie deficit, 100% is possible, provided you're doing the basics. You know, we kind of cover off progressive overload and that kind of thing, and saying if you're adding weights to your bar, dumbbell, tool, whatever it is you're training with, and you're doing it in a kind of sensible way and you're following a decent program, I see no reason why not to. But then I think the question gets back to then how big of a deficit are we talking? You know, I think there's a sensible deficit where there is a cut-off point. I don't know how you would work around that. Would that be a kind of percentage of your total day?
Yeah, probably best. Yeah, when people do like an absolute, like the classic 500 calories per day is like a pound of body fat a week. For like a bikini athlete, that's probably going to kill it. And for a bloke who's 120 kilos lifting, probably won't touch the sides. It could go much further. So as a percentage of energy intake's probably best. I think people normally sort of lump strength and muscle mass into one with this question, I think, which is what you were just getting at as well. But we actually have really good research showing that strength and muscle mass can be improved in a calorie deficit. And again, it comes down to weight loss is not fat loss. They're 2 separate things. Muscle gain particularly is a different sort of biological process to fat loss, so it's independent of the energy balance equation. So you can gain muscle in a surplus at maintenance or in deficit. The energy intake is a sort of facilitator, so it's very easy to do and should be done in a surplus. That's when you're going to maximize strength and muscle gains. Maintenance, it's possible. In a deficit, it just becomes harder. Like the anabolic stimulus is less without as much food because it's an energy dependent process. You need calories to be able to fuel the processes. So, but yeah, there's a classic paper from about 4 years ago where they put people in a 40% deficit, which is huge. And these were untrained people, according to the paper, but they had a baseline 1 rep max bench of like 100, 110 kilos.
Good
And
for a
I would not mind that. But the guy who ran the study was basically like, they just hadn't been training for a while, but they'd trained for years, but the journals wouldn't let us put trained, but not trained. But yeah, 40% deficit, they just kept protein really high. From memory, it was like 2.2 grams per kilogram. They suffered because 40% deficit's grim.
That's horrendous.
A big deficit. I think it might have been for 12 weeks as well, off the top of my head. I can't remember. But yeah, lost body fat, gained muscle, gained strength. Like 1 rep max in the lifts they tested got stronger. So it's more than possible. It's just about, and if we looked at it from a bigger picture over the year, when should you be doing that? So for me, people spend too much time of the year in a deficit. Yeah. Sort of dicking around in a deficit and not doing it properly. If you do it properly,
no one goes kind of whole in. Everyone kind of, as you very adequately put it, is people kind of dick around it.
Dicking around in a deficit,
I feel like we've kind of come out of this. There's this whole kind of generation of weight loss, slim fast, slim and world, all that kind of stuff, which is fine if that's your thing, crack on. But there's this whole bunch of people that say, well, you must lose weight. And then there's no stop button. So people just carry on losing weight. And then now the information is now readily available and people are starting to understand that weight loss equals calorie deficit. They go, right, I just won't eat. I'll starve myself for 3 days at a time and eat for 4, that kind of thing. So
exactly. I mean,
that's that sort of line you're touching on.
Yeah, the country doesn't have a weight loss problem; it has a weight maintenance problem.
Correct.
How many different ways are there to lose weight? Like you've seen people's mums doing detoxes and juice cleanse, all that bollocks.
Yeah.
They all lose weight. You can't say they don't work because they work, but you've not learned how to maintain your new weight. So, and obviously, like, well, I've done this now. I've lost this weight. I imagine I can go back to pies and pizzas, and they do, and it doesn't work. And then they put all the weight back on, and then some. So yeah, weight maintenance is in itself a skill. But like as a strength athlete who wants to get stronger, we know that having enough calories or probably having a surplus is advantageous for strength and muscle mass. You should be looking at your year and saying, I want to spend as much time as possible at maintenance and a surplus, getting strong. And if I'm going to go in a deficit, which is probably useful for periods of the year, I want to do it properly, quickly, get some decent help probably to do it, not mess around in it, half in a deficit, but then half not, and then like half on the beers, and I've got a holiday halfway through and stuff like that. And you're just like, well, it's taking you twice as long. You've got half as far as you could have, and you could have spent all that time getting stronger instead.
Yeah, 100%. And it's one of the things that I talk to both with my athletes down the club quite a lot is, and especially this comes into a lot for myself, not so much, but when you're sort of stuck within a weight category, I am way above the top end of my weight category, so I'm not that fast. But if you've got someone that's saying 89 kilo bracket for Olympic lifting, and they've got to kind of stay there for competitions, which is trivial at the moment because there are none.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of balance of to what you kind of do, and you know how far above that category do you stay through the year, and then when do you start to cut into that category, or do you stay hovering throughout it? And again, I think that's where we're going to go into another question, but I think that's another it depends answer, and I think it very much depends on the individual, which is looping back to Craig's question: can you get strong on a calorie deficit? Yeah, 100% you can, but it very much depends on the individual. What you said of how they react to those deficits.
Yeah, I mean, and your example of the weight maker is a completely different one. So with that one, I say completely different. It's a very good one in that it's more important that you look at it through over the year. And for that person, I work with a lot, particularly female weight category athletes that are shit scared of being more than 2 kilos over their weight, because then they end up being that weight. They end up being 2 kilos over the weight they need to be 1 week out as well. And then are shit scared and just don't eat and don't drink for a week, ruin themselves, then have to go compete.
Yeah.
So when you go on.
So that's a bad place to be.
Oh, it's awful, isn't it? And when you're trying to work out where do I need to be in the off season, it's really important that you know how long you normally cut for, how your body responds to cutting, what strategies you use, what you do in that last week, in terms of some of the acute stuff around water and food. If you know that, you know what weight you need to be, you know how much weight you can lose doing those things in that last week, you know how much weight you could lose in a calorie deficit for the 10 weeks before then. And then if you calculate back from there, you can say, all right, actually, if I'm at this weight 12 weeks out, I know that I'll lose this much weight up until last week. I know I can lose this much weight in the last week. And then I know I'll be at my weight. So that's why I always do. You work backwards from the weight you need to be rather than, oh, I'm actually a little bit close. Like, I can't really have that pizza. Like, there is no time and place for doing everything you want to do with food like normal people do in the off season.
Yeah.
And by knowing what you've got to do, like in prep, you can sort of moderate what you do outside of it. And same with things like tracking. Like, a lot of my clients don't like to track. Weight makers, you probably need some time off. Most people need time off tracking calories and macros. The off season is great for that if you know where you've got to be and when and how and stuff like that. So
yeah, 100%, completely agree. Awesome. I feel like that's quite a well-rounded answer.
That was, yeah, that was comprehensive.
We went on little tangents and everything.
Yeah.
Cool. So did you have another one? Did you want to throw in?
Yeah. So someone said to me, "Are diet drinks bad for us? Are artificial sweeteners bad for us?" It depends. This one does depend, but this is a slightly different nutrition issue that we get when people discuss nutrition. And in debating in general, it's called the straw man argument. So I will give an answer on diet drinks. So the research shows that diet drinks, when consumed in moderation, and if you're not a complete dick about it, going like 15, 20 cans of Diet Coke a day.
Oh.
Yeah. And you're nuts. And this is an important bit because there's different research here. And you're not a rat, because if you are a rat, it's slightly different. But let's assume you're a person drinking like a normal amount of diet drinks per day. We don't have any research that says that that's bad for your health. So the straw man argument is when someone takes what I've just said, makes up a different argument, and then attacks me with it. So I will say they are not bad for your health. And then Deborah will look at that and go, oh, so you're saying that diet drinks are really good for you and everyone should have them?
Awesome. Great job, Deborah.
Thank you. Yeah, I did say that. But they're not a health drink by any stretch. You should probably moderate your intake of them. But moderate intake does not seem to cause any health issues whatsoever. So, yeah, it's one of those things where I try not to have as much of them as I do. So I'm unsuccessful in attempting to limit the amount of diet drinks I have effectively. But yeah, particularly around like dieting and in calorie deficits, they can help with feeling a little bit fuller and sort of.
I think there's an element of kind of satiety around them as well. You know, if you're trying to cut weight, and if you look at physique athletes, for example, bodybuilders, bikini, that sort of thing, and you just want that kind of hit of sweet, I think they have very, very much a place in that role.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
that thing. Then
again, probably something you could periodize, which sounds a little bit weird to periodize diet drinks, but like like when you're prepping for competition, making weight, use them. Then try and limit how much you use them outside of that. Mostly because you can have more calories anyway, so why don't you just have nicer drinks than a diet drink? Yeah. The only other side that I won't cover because it's not my area is the dental side of it. And you hear all sorts of different things about whether they're good for your teeth or not. I don't know. I'm not a dentist.
Yeah. Something about the carbon in the bubbles. I don't know
either. Speak to you. That's outside my jurisdiction, so I'm not going to cover that.
In terms of a health benefit,
yeah.
I mirror exactly what you said. I mean, I did a little bit of research on it a while back. Someone asked me, not a lot, but a little bit. And I think if we're talking just like aspartame, for example, which is the one that gets the biggest rap, I think that the sheer amount of aspartame you'd have to consume to have any negative impacts.
It's kilos.
I mean, you're chugging down liters of Diet Coke a day. You know, it's
You're going to run into issues before you run into any sort of
100%. Yeah, you're going to have digestive issues way before you have aspartame issues.
Someone's going to have to bring you the drinks on the toilet because that's where you're going to spend a lot of your time if you're consuming that much.
So I think, are diet drinks bad for you? I would have said, and again, depends, but no, as by and large.
Yeah, I mean, your point there is valid in that because of the amount of people saying stuff about it, aspartame is probably the most researched food compound we have.
Yeah.
It's an incredible body of research, and none of it's found anything. There's a little bit.
if you're a rat, you're bang in trouble. But
yeah, there's a little bit where like a lot of the old research hasn't looked at gut health and gut microbiome, which is obviously quite a new flourishing area in nutrition. Whether there'll be anything there, not sure. I think it'll be like a lot of the gut health stuff that if you are looking after your gut health in other areas, it's not going to have a negative effect. But it'll probably, if you've got issues and other areas of your diet are poor, it'll probably exacerbate those issues and make them worse.
yeah,
But yeah, in the context of a normal, healthy diet, they're absolutely fine.
sound cool, nice.
I like that we've agreed everything so far.
Yeah, this is. I mean, it helps.
You're an idiot.
Imagine. No. I'm cutting this off. Never speaking of this guy again. Cool. And then so the last one I had was from one of my members, Gabe, who's interesting. He's one of our junior members, and sort of I think he's trying to put a little bit, trying to stack a little bit of weight on and that kind of thing. But he asked a really valid question, one that I've been asked quite a lot, which is sort of what would be the best high calorie meals or best high calorie food that wouldn't make you that full or feel that full. So for me, my kind of go-to is peanut butter, like peanut butter on white bread would be a solid go-to. But in terms of something a little better, what would your kind of go-tos be in that one?
So I guess to strip it back a little bit first, the question is, why are you trying to get massive amounts of energy in? If it's like a younger athlete looking to put some size on and put some weight on, the surplus you need is not normally what people say it is. Like a surplus of 500 calories at most is going to be sufficient.
Yeah.
And for a young guy, you're not going to be eating more than 3,500 calories. I wouldn't have thought 4,000 calories most depending on your activity. Most people can do that through food if they're clever about it. Obviously, some people have different hunger levels and different rates of satiety and things like that. But yeah, just make sure. First question is, if someone says that to me and they're like, "Yeah, I'm trying to get 8,000 calories in, but I can't." I'm like, "Well, yeah, because you probably shouldn't be." Like, I can understand why you can't. Yeah, but it's normally because they've read something on Men's Health that tells them they should be doing. So, I think that's a bit. You don't see it as much, do you, as you did a few years ago, like the dirty bulk sort of mentality.
Yeah, I think that was made a big thing after The Rock posted up that enormous stack of pancakes.
Yeah.
It was a big thing, and everyone, if The Rock can do that, and it looks like that, then I can do it. And then we had like a big clog of massive fat dudes.
Yeah, and everyone saw Michael Phelps' calorie intake for the day. 12,000, 20,000, 20,000 calories per day he eats, mostly from Greg's, and everyone's like, yeah, all right, I can do that.
Awesome. Well, I think the biggest one, I mean, in terms of calories as well, there was, and I mean, we're talking the very upper echelons of their sports. You know, I mean, The Rock's just enormous. Michael Phelps, multiple Olympic medalist. I went, so for my 30th, my wife bought me an audience with ticket to Eddie Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he's one world's strongest man. He's kind of riding that wave, and he was doing this little thing where he sits up on a stage, and I think it was Jamie Alderton was doing the interview with him and asking him trite questions about himself, and it was cool. It was a good evening. But one of the questions he asked was, "What does a day in the life of world's strongest man look like? Like, what do you do? What's your food? What's your training? What's this and the other?" And without going into all the things, he kind of said, "Well, I woke up at X o'clock in the morning, rolled up a bit of steak and ate it, and then followed that up with a family cheesecake, and then went back to bed for an hour." You know. And it was kind of, he summed it up and he went, anything between 25 and 30,000 calories a day for the last 3 years. And people in the audience were like that. Fucking hell. But then you have to think of the level that he was training at. He's in the gym 4 or 5 hours a day, shifting some massive, massive tin. Yeah. And, you know, I think when he competed at World's Strongest Man, he was like 170 kilos, maybe more. So, I mean, that's a lot of size to have to fuel. And obviously, the bigger you are, the more fuel you're going to need, right? Yeah. So there's that. So going back to Gabe, obviously he's growing lad, one of our junior athletes. He ain't going to need 30,000 calories a day.
No. So, I mean, there are a few things that like people say, "Oh, that sounds great. Maybe for a day you might want it, but you don't want that."
Terrific. I'm 140 kilos. I competed the other weekend, and I was eating some decent calories to keep weight on for that.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah.
It's just
day in, day out. Yeah, it's relentless.
Yeah.
The other caveat is that he's a strongman, obviously. So what that weight is matters slightly less than it would for other sports. That strongman and sort of rugby union are two of the ones where sometimes we just want mass.
Yeah.
Mass does move mass to some extent.
Yeah. If you're trying to pull a plane, you need a little bit.
We'd like more of it to be functional, but at some point there's a limit to how much functional mass you can put on for a given time period.
Yeah.
If you just need mass to move something, then you just got to put some mass on. Same with rugby in terms of from a protective side of things, that if you're scrawny but got some muscle, someone's going to break you in half. But also, like, you sort of want more force to put through someone and break them in half, so more mass.
Yeah.
As long as you can move it pretty well, you want as much mass as possible that you can move well. But yeah, so in terms of Gabe's question and how does he get more calories in, then like you said, nut butters are a really good one. With satiety, fluids are really good. I can make smoothies are wonderful in that I can make one that's 200 calories. I can make one that's 1400 calories if I wanted to. Like bananas, nut butters, whole milk, cream, etc. Like, you can make it very easily a very high calorie shake. Most people don't need that, or to that extent. Like a good smoothie with a couple of pieces of fruit in it, like a banana and something else, some mixed berries, and some nut butter or almond butter, something like that, you'd end up getting 700-800 calories in quite easily.
Yeah.
The other thing to say to that is that with meals that have more ingredients, you're more likely to eat more. A lot of people try and eat loads of calories on chicken, broccoli, rice, and you do get very bored quite quickly. So if you think how much of that, even if you equated it with calories, how much of that would you eat compared to if you were given the same calories at a buffet?
Yeah.
It's very easy to eat more, and because there's so many different flavors that you want to try a bit of everything, you don't get, like, the thing dessert belly where you're full but you can eat dessert if you wanted to.
Always got second belly, yeah.
Yeah. So you can sort of get full on certain tastes but have room for other tastes as well. So like sweet, salty, umami, which is like meaty, etc. So by having more different types of food at a meal, you're more likely to eat more food, more calories, and not feel as full. And then the last one that I always say to people is pick meals where it's easy to add different types of carbohydrate in. So again, chicken, broccoli, rice is just one source of carbohydrate. It's very boring very quickly. Something like a burrito, when you've got like beans, wraps, and rice, and could probably pair it with wedges or fries or something as well, becomes very easy to put more calories in. Like a pasta bake, you can do with bread or garlic bread. Again, very easy to put more calories in. Burgers, again, bread, chips, etc. like that. It becomes very easy. So yeah, pair up carbohydrate sources and just put as much different types of food on your plate as possible. And then just normal high calorie foods like nuts don't generally fill me up that much. Like a portion of nuts is depressing, isn't it? And how small it actually is. Same with cereal. Like, oh, we suggest 20 grams. You suggest what the fuck you want.
I bought out an actual portion of, I think it was like Cheerios or something crap the other day, and it was, I think it's like 2 spoons. Devastating.
Yeah, mate, a portion of Crave, you get to just look at 3 of them and then you have to put them back. Disgusting. Yeah. But cereal, again, really good one because I could eat cereal for weeks and it won't touch the sides.
Yeah.
But white bread, like you said, white bread's a very good one in that low fiber, high carbohydrate stuff doesn't fill you up or won't fill you up for long, and you can eat quite a lot of it.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Cool, man. Well, that's 4 questions with some solid answers, I think. So I think we could probably cap that there today, which is awesome. So I reckon if we can get more questions in, I'll get this up onto YouTube and make it look pretty and all that kind of good stuff somehow. I mean, I don't know how I'm going to do that because I mean, through lockdown, I didn't get to a barber beard, so this is going to be a thing for a while. But I'll do what I can. But yeah, we'll get this up. We'll throw it out, and people can ask us more questions through comments and DMs and all that kind of good stuff. I feel like now will probably be a good time to plug what we do. So if anyone's not interested in doing what we do, you can probably just log off now. But we're going to say what we do. So in terms of Charlie, what do you do? How can you offer the viewers at home some help?
Yeah, so I work a lot with various strength athletes. At the moment, mostly one-to-one. So I run a 12-week one-to-one nutrition coaching program where I basically teach you everything that you need to know to help you with your nutrition to reach your goal, whatever that is. And I always say to people that I want to get rid of them as soon as possible. So I always try and teach you as much as I can, as early as I can, so that you feel comfortable leaving me 12 weeks later, knowing what you've got to do. And then I'm also running a new 4-week habit program over lockdown. So people that don't want everything to go to shit and lose all the progress they've made since the last lockdown can jump on and get a bit of accountability and a little bit of help for the next 4 weeks as well.
Awesome, man. Cool. What I'll do is I'll put our Instagram names and stuff in the comments or the description of this so people can find this. We'll just at CB Nutrition, right?
Yes, might be an underscore at the end on Instagram because some Herbalife rep nicked
Oh,
at CB
perfect.
Nutrition.
Love
Classic.
Herbalife. I mean, Herbalife's another episode.
Oh mate, that's a whole episode of its own.
Let's cover that. That's going to be an animated program.
What to do with friends that sell Herbalife?
Perfect. Yeah. Just don't.
Yeah, just get rid of them. Yeah.
Perfect. Cool, man. I like that. So
Right.
with me, I'm at Night Strength or at Red Beer Barbell Club for the club. Much the same as yourself. I'm trying to do exactly what I can to keep people moving through lockdown. If you're a strength athlete and you want to try and keep your gains, but you've got a rubber band and 2 heavy bottles of water at home, you know, we could do something. But yeah, so I'm just trying to keep people moving, try and keep the skill level high. Strength will come back, but I think, you know, from working with people that I'm working with currently, I've got a number of Zoom sessions that we're doing again because they've come back. Everyone loves a Zoom PT session. You know, in terms of sort of one-to-one stuff, my DMs are open if you need help and advice and stuff. But my biggest advice for training through lockdown is keep the skill high. Strength will come. That's fine. You can build strength really easy as soon as you're back in the gym. But if you lose a skill, that can be a bitch to get back. So if you're a weightlifter and you forget how to snatch, or you don't do it for 4 weeks and you try and get back under a bar again, you're bang in trouble. Keep your skill high. And yeah, DMs are open for questions. But awesome. Happy days. Well, thank you very much. I will get this loaded up. We'll book another one in and get it up in a week or 2.
Awesome. Cheers, mate.
Days. No drama. Right. How do I stop the recording?